John Kabat-Zinn brought mindfulness into mainstream medicine in the 1970s. Thich Nhat Hanh popularized present-moment awareness in the West in the 1960s. Buddhist meditation traditions had been cultivating these practices for 2,500 years. And William James, sitting in his Harvard office in 1890, described the psychological mechanics of what they were all pointing at, without ever having encountered these traditions. In the Principles of Psychology, James wrote one of the most quoted sentences in all of psychology: "The faculty of voluntarily bringing back a wandering attention, over and over again, is the very root of judgment, character, and will." An education which should improve this faculty would be the education par excellence. He then added, with characteristic honest frustration, that he had no idea how such training might actually be done. Today, we know how it's done. Mindfulness meditation, at its core, is precisely the practice James described. You place attention somewhere, the mind wanders, you notice it has wandered, and you bring it back. Over and over again. That act of noticing and returning is not a failure of meditation. It is the practice itself. Every return is a small exercise in voluntary attention. Over time, hundreds and thousands of these small exercises accumulate into a genuinely changed relationship between the practitioner and their own mind. James's psychological framework helps us understand why this works. He understood attention as fundamentally selective. The mind can only fully engage with one thing at a time, and what it selects determines what reality feels and means to the person experiencing it. Two people can be in the same room having completely different experiences, depending on what each mind is attending to. Attention is not passive reception. It is active construction of the experiential world. He distinguished sharply between involuntary attention, the automatic capture of awareness by anything novel, bright, moving, emotionally charged, or instinctively relevant, and voluntary attention, the effortful, self-directed placing of awareness on whatever we deliberately choose. Involuntary attention always wins in the short term. Every ding of your phone, every sudden movement, every emotionally loaded thought will pull attention away from whatever you were focusing on. James knew this was the human condition, not a personal failing. But he also knew that the capacity for voluntary attention could be strengthened. He had observed that people who had developed this capacity, great scientists, artists, religious practitioners, scholars, could sustain engagement with difficult material in a way that others could not. This was not merely a cognitive gift. It was, he believed, a trained skill. A skill that changed not just what you could do with your mind, but what you were like as a person. Here is where James's insight goes beyond most contemporary mindfulness instruction. He connected attention training directly to character, to who you are, not merely to how well you can focus. Because attention determines what you perceive, and what you perceive determines what you feel, and what you feel shapes what you do. The person who controls their attention controls, in a real sense, their entire inner life. The person who has trained the faculty of bringing back a wandering mind is more in contact with what is actually happening, in the world around them and within themselves, than the person whose attention is perpetually hijacked by the loudest stimulus available. Modern neuroscience has confirmed what James intuited. Mindfulness training measurably changes the brain, thickening the prefrontal cortex, strengthening connections between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, reducing the default mode network's tendency towards self-referential rumination. The wandering mind, as a landmark 2010 Harvard study showed, is associated with unhappiness, not because wandering thought is inherently bad, but because uncontrolled mind-wandering tends to drift toward worry, self-criticism, and regret. Training the mind to return to the present is training it to spend less time in those painful default states. James also wrote presciently about what we might call the costs of mental distraction. He observed that most people experience life as a kind of blur, with occasional sharp moments of genuine presence. The person who is perpetually thinking about something other than what they are doing is only half alive in every moment, present in body but absent in experience. The value of any given moment of life is proportional to how fully you are in it. You don't need a formal meditation practice to apply James's insights, though practice helps enormously. The core discipline is simpler. When your mind wanders from what you've chosen to attend to, notice that it has wandered, and bring it back. Every time you do this, at your desk, in a conversation, reading a book, having dinner with someone you love, you are doing the thing James identified as the root of judgment, character, and will. You are becoming, one small return at a time, more present to your own life. James would also add something that most contemporary mindfulness teaching overlooks: the connection between attention and character. When he said the faculty of bringing back a wandering attention is the root of will and judgment, he was not making a minor pedagogical point. He was saying that who you become, your values, your relationships, your accomplishments, is shaped profoundly by what you consistently attend to. The person who trains voluntary attention is not merely becoming more productive. They are becoming more themselves, more present to their own life, more able to give full presence to the people and work they care about. That is not a cognitive skill. It is a way of being. Subscribe to The Psychology of William James for more insights from the father of American psychology. New videos every week.